All right, I am here with Pokexpert Jillian. She
Hello.
knows everything about Pokemon, like everything. And so we're going to be introducing Gen 3. I'm giving her a hard time because she doesn't think she knows everything I do. When I started playing Pokemon, the furthest thing back I could remember was Gen 1. I remember the first cartoons when they were coming out. I was a big Bulbasaur fan. I thought Pikachu zapped Ash all the time and was kind of a little punk. But he was fun. I liked him, but Bulbasaur was my favorite. And shortly after, I kind of stopped watching the whole Pokemon thing. Pokemon Go comes out, and I'm like, this is something I can get on board with. There's a lot of interest there. It kind of brings in all different age groups, all nationalities. Everyone can play together very easily. It's very much a bonding experience with people in your area. And just like when Gen 2 came out, I was kind of clueless as to what we were getting. It was almost like Christmas. I had no idea what was going to be coming in. And now we have Gen 3 right around the corner. Some people think it won't be here till December. I personally think it will be here by the end of September. The reason being is Niantic had said that they would have a major update every 3 months, every quarter, and I don't think what they've given us to this point is the third major update. So I'm thinking it's Gen 3, it's in the code. There's reason why people would believe that it wouldn't be till December. I totally get it. They might be 100% right. But maybe we get trading or something like that. But I know this, everyone's very interested in Gen 3, not just when it will be here, but what's coming up. And basically, we've heard a lot about the strongest Pokemon in the mix, but we haven't been introduced to the evolutions or kind of what they're like in comparison to what's already in the game. And if you're like me and you don't know about Gen 3, that would be pretty interesting. I was searching all over YouTube trying to figure out what's in Gen 3, and I heard a lot about the strongest stuff, and that's awesome. Kind of want to know what's the next Charizard, what's the next Bulbasaur, what's, the next Sentret is basically Rattata, right? So I know I'm not pronouncing it right, am I?
Nope.
How do you pronounce it?
Ratata.
Ratata?
Ratata.
You see why we have her here, everybody? That right there is why she gets paid the big bucks. The Pokexpert. You can put that together and make one word. So basically, Jill, how long have you been playing Pokemon?
I've been playing Pokemon since I couldn't even read yet, so a very long time, decades.
Could not read, knew about Pokemon, born into it. It's kind of like she sounds almost like a Spartan, born into it. It's in her DNA. Before she could walk or talk, knew about Pokemon. So I'm going to try to pronounce some of these names, and Jill's going to correct me. And then we're going to talk a little bit about those individual Pokemon, what makes them different, and what's already in the game that's kind of like them. But before we get started on that, Jill actually brought me it's not a bribe, it's an actual present for my birthday that passed on August 1st for anybody who saw the Zoo episode. And it is Pokemon specific. I haven't seen it yet, so you're seeing it at the same time as me. It is an awesome Pikachu tumbler mug ceramic thing. This is awesome. I love it. I think Lisa's going to grab it the whole time. Lisa's probably going to take this to work every day because it's awesome. That's great. And you guys can even see right here on the bottom left of the screen, I got a little Santa hat Pikachu, so I am a fan. So thank you so much.
You're
It's
welcome.
very nice of you. And I'm going to leave this up here, not just to block me, but because it's very cool. So let's start with, I'm going to try, is
Go
this
for it.
Trico?
Yep, Trico's correct.
Yes. I got one, and then he evolves to Groovial.
Grovile.
Grovile. I was in the ballpark. I had the G part right. And then finally he ends up like Sceptile.
Yep.
Yes, 2 out of 3 so far. Not terrible. Better than I thought, to be honest with you. Now, when we're looking at these three, this it looks like a reptile, so it kind of reminds me of Bulbasaur. Are we close?
So Trico is the new Gen 3 grass type starter.
Okay.
So basically like Bulbasaur and Chikorita.
Nice, nice. So Bulbasaur is my favorite. Chikorita is Lisa's favorite. So this one we'll probably like a lot between us.
Maybe.
Is there anything about him that's kind of interesting and sets him apart?
One thing that's interesting with Trico, Grovyle, and Sceptile, they remain purely grass types.
Gotcha.
The other two starters in this generation, they add another type as they evolve.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right, so let's check out the next one, Torchic.
Correct.
Yes, 3 for 4. Then Torchic turns into Combuskin.
Correct.
Nice. And then he turns into, now I've heard this one because he was on some other people's lists. I want to say he was on a Mystic 7 list. I don't remember which, but I heard Blaziken.
Correct.
So this one is kind of cheating. I already heard that one. So this one is a fire type?
Yes. So Torchic is just a fire type, but when Torchic evolves into Combuskin, it's a fire fighting type, and that remains when Combuskin becomes Blaziken.
So you have Charizard, and then the Gen 2 is Cyndaquil, which is also awesome. And then now you have your fire type turning into a half fighting type.
Correct.
Interesting. So how does he stack up with the other starters? Is he better? Is he about the same? Is he right along the same lines as a Charizard strength-wise?
It all depends on who you're going against. For Blaziken, firefighting, going against Charizard would actually be a really bad matchup because flying is super effective against fighting. So it just depends who you're going against. I personally like Blaziken better, but that's just a personal preference. That isn't necessarily a statistic preference.
Gotcha. Well, and I think that's the fun part about Pokemon, right? Because if you just go with what's the strongest one every time, and you're not going with the ones that you're personally interested in, everyone's going to go in there and fight with the same 6 in every raid, and you'll see the same stuff in every gym. And this adds more of a unique look here. Every time that we get a generation that comes out, every Pokemon becomes that much more rare. Yes, more spawns are added. Yeah, you'll see more stops, and you'll probably see more gems, but it's not going to make up the difference of adding 135 new Pokemon into the game. So this will be interesting, and hopefully, like you said, something that you prefer and have fun playing with. So now we have what I'm guessing is the water type, and I know it says it below them, but I promise you guys I'm not looking at what it says. I'm just looking at the little picture, and you can tell by looking at him, he looks like a water type, so this is going to replace like the Squirtle, right? Mm-hmm. So Mudkip?
Correct.
Pretty straightforward. Marsh Tomp?
Correct.
And Swampert?
Correct.
All right, so how does he stack up with the other water types coming out from Gen 1 and Gen 2?
So he has a good strength and a bad weakness. So when Mudkip becomes Mars, Tomp, and Swampert, they add the ground type into the mix. So one of water's weaknesses is electricity. But when you add the ground aspect, typically electricity doesn't affect ground at all. Mm-hmm. So that basically neutralizes the negative effect of electricity against this starter. However, grass is super effective against water and ground. So he's very weak to ground, but he's a good Pokemon go against with electricity, or he's good at defeating electricity.
Gotcha. Which is definitely a little bit different for water.
Correct.
So see, the explanation adds up. You can see why she's the expert. I asked her to do this video back on Tuesday. She agreed to it. We were getting ready to go. It fell through. It was my fault. And it would have been one of the first Gen 3 videos out if we would have done it at that point. But glad that you could meet with us today and talk about it now, because you definitely are adding a lot of good information here. What I see here is Puccina?
No. Pucciana.
Okay, I'm going to pretend there's more N's in there. Mightyena? Mightyena?
Yeah.
So this, I'm probably saying them so close to what it could be that I might even mess you up. That you could probably read it and know it's right, and then I can say it a little bit wrong, and then you get it a little mixed up. Is that what's happening?
No, it's more that some of them are... When you're playing the games, it's typically reading. So I'm trying to remember back when I was watching the cartoon or anime based off of it, what it was called. Mm-hmm. So that was years upon years ago. So
Gotcha.
some of them I do remember quite fondly, and some I'm like, I think it was this one.
Gotcha.
So.
This is interesting because it's very early in the Pokédex on Gen 3, which makes me think that it's not like a Houndoom, because the Arcanine, the Houndoom, those were the dogs in the first 2 generations. Now you have this one that is dog-esque, but it's very early on in the Pokédex, which makes me think it's a lot more common than those other ones. What's this one's story?
So this one is kind of similar to Rattata or Sentret, but overall I think is personally stronger. So Poochyena and Mightyena are both Dark-type Pokemon. So they are a bit similar to Houndoom and Houndour. However, you can get them earlier in the game. In the Pokemon Sapphire, Ruby, and Emerald, Poochyena you catch in the first area. In fact, it's attacking the professor at one of the beginning cutscenes in the game. So you can easily get it, but if you train it, it can become very strong. And fun fact, it is used very often in Team Aqua or Magma. I don't remember which one, maybe both.
Nice. What's interesting to me about it is it's a pure dark type. There's not a lot of those. You have Umbreon, and he doesn't get extremely strong. I like to use him against a lot of different raid bosses, but he has a good amount of hit points. CP doesn't get incredibly high, but pure dark types are going to be strong against, like, say, a Mew or Mewtwo when they come out. So if his evolved version can hang up there, he might actually be raid worthy when you're fighting with him if his hit points can hang in there. Now you have Zigzagoon.
Yep.
Yes. And then Linoon.
Close, basically. Linoon.
Okay. Close enough, I guess. So this one looks a lot like a rat to me, like a Rattata.
Yep. Zigzagoon and the Linoon are this generation's Rattata, Sentret, Raticate, and Sentret.
Now he's normal type, so he might have something like a Hyper Beam, much like Sentret. Takes a lot more to get him evolved, it looks like, though, because you're looking at 25 for the rat, you're looking at 25 for Sentret. Now you're all of a sudden buffed up to 50. That's a lot more candy to get him going. He's got to be worth it to make that happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, he's a normal type and almost evolve and drop.
Free XP, though.
XP, that's the name of the game. Then you have Wurmple.
Nope.
Uh-oh.
Wurmple.
What is it?
Wurmple.
That's what I said.
You said Rumple.
No, that was my W. That's as good as I got. Wumple? I'll enunciate the W a little bit better. I'm pretty sure I still messed that one up. And then he turns into Kassoon. And then, is that right?
I think so.
And then Dustox.
Yep.
Okay, so here it kind of looks like a Butterfree situation, kind of like a Beedrill. Is that along those lines?
For the most part, yes. The interesting thing, though, with this one is that Wurmple can evolve into either Kassoon or Silcoon. Mm-hmm. So it's random. Typically in the video games, it was based on gender. Mm-hmm. Typically, not always. So the male would evolve into Kassoon, and the females would typically evolve into Silcoon. Mm-hmm. And then Dusktosk is more like Beedrill, and Beautifly is more like Butterfree.
Gotcha. So that it kind of ties all of them in there together. And if you're hearing voices in the background, we are at a gathering, a game night. There's a lot of people here. Some of them are nice enough to pop in and out and be a little bit entertained by what we're doing. But we aren't sending them packing at all. We appreciate them letting us be here and doing this. So this one is weird to me because it looks... I don't even know. I don't even know. Almost like a Politoed and a monkey got together and now they're a thing. But you have Lotad.
Correct.
Lombre. Mm-hmm. Ludicolo.
Yeah.
All right. That one. Yeah, never heard these before. The first one was, and the first two are pretty easy. So who's this guy comparable to?
actually think of any off the top of my head from the first 2 gens.
So this one's fairly a new type to Pokemon Go.
Can you think of any water grass types?
Water grass types. I'm trying to think about it. Off the top of my head, no, none come to mind. But his look is very different. Where he's a water type, but he's a monkey water type, so it's pretty different. What's his story?
Lotad is in the video games. Depending on which game you get, you could either get a Lotad or a Seedot, which will be the next Pokemon we discuss. Lotad is kind of one of the first water type Pokemon you can get in the game if you don't pick Mudkip as your starter. I never really used them that much because honestly, growing up, I thought they were kind of ugly.
Yeah.
But they're fine. And the game Pokemon, it's the first RPG for the GameCube that had Pokemon. I want to say it's Pokemon Coliseum, but I know that's incorrect. Mm-hmm. There was a whole area where the main boss used a bunch of Ludicolo, and it was kind of weird.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Thank you for the history on that. And let's see if you were correct on the next one. Seedot is the next one. You had it memorized. Again, before she could talk, before she could walk, she knew Pokemon. Now, I haven't seen this guy before, but he looks like something from maybe Mario Brothers that he would step on or that would blow up if you light the top of him. So you have Seedot, you have Nuzleaf, and you have Leaf Stone. I'm sorry, Shiftry. Some of the chat and the group was popping up. Thank you guys for tuning in and taking a look at this with us. For those of you just joining, we do have Jillian here, who's Pokexpert. She knows more about Pokemon than anybody else I know. She's known about him since before she could talk, before she could walk. She really does have a lot of information about these Gen 3 Pokemon. So what can you tell us about Seedot and his evolutions?
Once again, I wasn't a big fan of these Pokemon, so I don't know a ton. But Seedot is just regular grass type, and then they add dark type when Seedot evolves into Nuzleaf and Shiftry. There's not a whole lot to be said. Sometimes they can be hard to go against, but as long as you have a good type matchup, it was easy to defeat.
Okay, all right. Now, is he comparable to anything that's already in Pokemon Go?
I don't think there are any other grass dark types at the moment.
Okay.
But I mean, he's a grass type Pokemon that evolves 3 times. That's kind of like Bulbasaur, Chikorita, but not exactly. It's similar, but not.
He's not quite starter caliber,
No.
right? Okay, all right. So now we have. I'm guessing this is not our new Pidgey. It's probably along the lines of a Pharaoh, the sparrow that turns into the Pharaoh. Maybe something like that.
So, did you say the names yet?
Talio, Swellow?
Talo and Swellow. So, in this gen, they don't exactly have like a Pidgey and a Spearow. It's kind of combined into one, and that is Talo and Swellow. They were excellent Pokemon to use. One of the first flying types you could get, which helps a lot in the first areas when you're going against grass and bug types. Pretty strong overall. It scaled well throughout Alpha Sapphire with me, but I don't know how it'll work out in Pokemon Go. We'll have to wait and see.
All right. Awesome. And you know what? I do, with gyms, I like to mess around a little bit more because I save my better stuff for the raids. If I get into a gym, I'll use a Pidgeot that might be a perfect one. And he might be maybe a 1700 and have the right attacks. And he can be kind of fun to use, to be honest with you. Even though it's a bird and it's not really like a monster, it's still kind of fun to take down a gym with a Pidgeot. So Pharaoh I didn't really get into that much, but maybe this will be a fun one to use. So now this is interesting. I haven't seen something like this. Wingull and Pelipper?
Ringle and Pelipper.
Yeah, I wasn't close.
No.
So what is this comparable to that's already out there? Not necessarily the types, but is he comparable to anything else that's already in Pokemon Go as far as a bird that evolves with maybe 50 and he's done?
I mean, another bird that evolves at 50, would that be Spearow? And Sephiro's at
Yeah, I mean,
25.
we're kind of along the same lines. Pharaoh is 50. So, I mean, I guess he could be along those lines. He's not like you were saying before in earlier ones, he's not a water type. Pharaoh isn't, but, it's definitely interesting how they're mixing the types here. So what do we know about him?
So Wingull and Pelipper are both water flying types. So it's kind of similar to how Mudkip is, how it eliminates a weakness, but it adds, or it eliminates a weakness, but also makes another weakness even more potent. So grass is typically super effective against water, but flying is super effective against grass. So that just equals out.
Gotcha.
But electric type moves are super effective against both. Yeah. So if you come across one of these, you want a Pokemon that knows electric type moves. Playing the games, Ringles and Pelipers often got pretty annoying because they just keep popping up when you're surfing in the games, and they just get really annoying.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not going to be this super fun, rare Pokemon that you're kind of like excited to be using. He's going to be fairly common.
The thing is, though, that's how Zubat was in the video games as well, but people are kind of excited when they can see a Zubat sometimes.
That's true. And then Crobat, taking it up another notch, he's been kind of a fun one to use in gyms as well. But he hasn't really transferred over to raids because of his types. He hasn't been very effective towards any of the legendaries out there that I can think of. And his hit points aren't very high, so he can't take much of a beating. But if you have maybe I don't know, Zapdos, I mean, he's going to tear apart this Pelican.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go to this next one. Now, this is one that's popped up on quite a few YouTubers' top 10 lists. Ralts? Corellia?
That one, it depends on who you talk to. I personally call it Curlia, but I don't know the actual pronunciation.
Well, I lived in Texas for over 2 decades, so that's Corellia to me. I'm probably off. Then you have Gardevoir.
Gardevoir.
Okay, kind of sounds like God of War, like the video game series. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're on a podcast right now. You want to say hi? Mm-hmm. Yeah, pop on over, say hi. Introduce yourself. He's got a mouthful. He comes over to say hi with a mouthful.
This is Jesse.
This is Jesse. He's a nice guy. He's keeping his mouth closed at least. You know, he's not showing you the food. He's got manners. That's what counts. Thanks, Jesse. So what can you tell us about this one? It's popping up on a lot of top 10 lists.
So this is one of my more favorite Pokemon types. Ralts, Curlia, and Gardevoir were always in my team for Pokemon games. The fun thing about these ones is that first off, they're basically Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam, but
okay.
They look a lot nicer in my opinion. Like, instead of looking like ants, they actually look kind of human.
They do look kind of human, and so if they're anything like Alakazam, where it's 25 and 100 to level up, same kind of thing. I'm guessing it does say Psychic underneath them, so I did read it that time. I didn't guess. And Glass Cannons, not a lot of hit points, but high attack.
I don't know how it will be in Pokemon Go. When I was playing it on my 3DS, it was most of the time one-hit KO, so I wasn't that worried about it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very interesting. So hard hitters.
One thing that to keep in mind, when Gen 4 comes out, they add another evolution. So Curlia can either become Gardevoir or Gallade. And it's the females become Gardevoir and males become Gallade, but you need an item. I think it's a Dawn Stone or Sign Stone or something like that. So you want to be saving up some of that candy.
Interesting. So you should probably save up a male and a female for the future evolutions. Is that right?
Correct.
So that's something that you haven't had to do in Pokemon Go yet, at least. So I'll be looking for, I'm on Team Mystic, so we're looking for wonders when we do our appraisals and exceeds on the 3 stats. So I'll be having to do a male and a female one and try to save up enough candy for the other evolve. Because I guess I'll just need to bring them up to the 25 point and have maybe the male one waiting to get the alt evolve. Kind of like Poly Whirl did. And you can go to Poliwrath or you can go to Politoad.
Yep. Same
only-
thing with Slowbro or Slowking.
But now this time we're just looking at the gender. So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be that much candy because you just need to get to the 25 candy mark, get it to that middle ground, and then wait for Gen 4 to come out.
However long that might be, though.
That could be a while because if this doesn't come out in September, it ends up in December, we're probably not seeing Gen 4 till at least the summer. So, plenty of time on that. So let's go over to this one. It is Surskit
Yep.
and Masquerain.
Yep.
Awesome. Now this definitely looks a little bit different. More of a spider type. Is this like a Spinarak kind of deal?
Similar.
Okay.
Spinarak is, I believe, bug. Is he poison as well? For Spinarak?
I believe so. Bug
So-
and poison.
Surskit is bug and water. So, it's just a different type. It can, depending on who you're going against, that can be good. But it's interesting, when Surskit evolves into Masquerain, it gets rid of the water type and adds the flying type.
All right. Interesting. Interesting. And there are a lot of water types mixed in here. Now, back to Corellia real quick. You'd mentioned that it looks a lot like a person, kind of like Blaziken almost has that human form, but he's so off that he's almost like a Hitmonlee. This one almost looks like it could be a woman with green hair that is kind of floating.
So, Corellia, and I did ballet growing up, so honestly, Corellia to me looks like a ballet dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, got the arms up in front, is on the tiptoes, and then Gardevoir is like a woman that's about to like go out to someplace fancy and has a nice long dress on.
Yeah, and how do you feel about fighting with a Pokemon that looks more like a person? Because that's different than what we've seen in the first two generations.
I feel like it's fine. I mean,
I'm
have a
not saying it's
problem.
controversial. I'm just wondering if it's like different. Like, hey, it's a little bit weird. This has arms and legs, you know?
it hasn't been weird for me.
Okay.
I mean, I just like that one more because to me, it just looks more aesthetically pleasing to the eye than
Okay.
some of the other ones.
Cool. So, like, when you deliver a beating, you want to look good doing it. I like it. All right. So, moving on down, we have Shroomish
Correct?
and Breloom.
Close enough.
Is this not maybe the types, but is he comparable to anything we already have?
Probably Paris and Parasect.
Oh. Yeah, not what I was hoping you were going to say. Just when we were hearing from trainer tips way back when, maybe 6 months into the game, 5 months into the game, he pointed out that Parasect actually had some usable stats. His CP could be higher. He could have some very good matchups. He had Hyper Beam. He had, different bug type moves, and he was actually viable to fight for gyms. And Niantic got wind of that and nerfed him as if he was already overused like a Blissey. I still don't know why that hasn't been nerfed, but I guess the gyms were kind of reworked to where Blissey works now with the depreciation and CP. But I wasn't hoping that you were going to say this was going to be like a Parasect. I'm a little disappointed. Is there
What were
anything,
you hoping for?
anything but. So, is there outside of that? Is there anything that you can tell us about him?
Not a heck of a lot. I'm not super familiar with this one in particular, but Sturmus starts out as grass, and then when evolves, you add the fighting type. So he's really weak against flying when he evolves, but he's also weak against Psychic, which is interesting because looking at it, you might think he's poison in grass, but he's fighting in grass, but they have the same weakness of Psychic.
Gotcha. Very, very interesting. So thank you for that piece. And then we have, now this one is obviously very controversial. Probably the most talked about one in Gen 3 so far because they're not sure how they're going to work him into the game to where he doesn't break the game, right? So you have Slackoff?
Slack off.
Vigoroth?
Yep.
And Slacking? Slacking?
It's a play on words.
Like slacking? I like it. I heard it after I said it. So with him, I'm guessing not very strong in the first part. looks more aggressive like a battler in the second one, and then he gets this crazy CP, and it's rumored that in Pokemon Go, he might be over 5,000 in the CP, which I just don't see happening. Is he comparable to anything?
Honestly, I would compare him a little bit to Snorlax.
Okay.
But that might just be because they have the same attitude.
Sure. I could see that. And they're both big guys, I'm assuming very defensive?
For the most part, yeah. And in the games, he would often have sleep type moves, like rest, where he goes to sleep, but then he has moves he can use while sleeping that would attack the opponent as well. So it made it annoying because he would restore his HP, then still be able to attack you right away.
Now, I did hear in the videos that the other YouTubers have pointed out, I want to say it was maybe Straight Up Knives pointed out that he attacks every other time, or maybe it was Prodigy's Nation pointed out that in the games he skips a turn to attack. Was that the case?
I never trained one because I wasn't that interested, but depending on the attacks that they use, it can take a turn to recover from using the attack.
Okay.
For example, Blast Burn, you would use it, but then you'd have to spend a turn resting before you could use another move.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I am going to say this. We have quite a few people here for game night. We've tied up a lot of Jillian's time. This would be an okay point to stop and pick up at another time, or we can keep going if you're up for it.
I'm fine with going.
Awesome. So you guys can put in the comments, thanks to Jillian, the Pokexpert, for staying with us and talking us through this so you don't have to wait for a different video days later. So we have Nincada.
Yep.
Ninjask. And Shedinja.
Yeah, I always said ninja, but
Okay.
I think you're actually right because there's no N there.
Well, this guy doesn't look like anything I've seen before. Is he comparable to anything that's already out in the game?
Not exactly. He's a little bit similar to Beedrill, but
Okay.
even then it's wonky. This Pokemon is just weird because it starts out as Bug Ground and then it turns into Bug Flying and then Bug Ghost.
Yeah, and he has a little halo above his head. I kind of like that. I haven't seen that before in Pokemon.
So this one is actually interesting because it's based loosely off of cicadas, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
So in the game, you would have a Nincada, and then you would evolve it into a Ninjask. And then if you had an empty slot in your inventory, a said Ninja would just appear, and that's supposed to be like the cicada cell. And that's why it's a ghost type.
So do you think that they'd be able to play that into Pokemon Go?
They may be able to, but I don't know if they would.
Gotcha. That would be an interesting twist if I just opened up my Pokédex and it said new to Pokédex and he was just in there. No catch, just a ghost Pokemon. For those of you just joining us, thanks for popping in. I'm here with the Pokexpert Jillian. Like we said before in this stream, she was checking out Pokemon before she could talk, before she could walk. She's been doing it for decades, knows a lot about these, played all the games. She's filling in where I leave off. So she has a lot of interesting tidbits about these. No pressure. But thank you again for being with us, and thank you guys for joining us now. This one, I'm going to try to pronounce it again. I haven't seen this generation. Wishmer,
Yep.
Loudred, and Exploud.
I think.
That's all I got. That's all I can do with it. So this one looks pretty interesting. Not quite sure what it reminds me of. It almost looks like a deranged Jigglypuff in the first one.
Not denying that.
The second one looks like something that I might see at an arcade. And then the third one looks like something from my nightmares. What is this one about?
This one is kind of similar to... It's a little bit better than a Rattata, but it's similar. There's not a heck of a lot to be said. They're just there. They aren't that great typically.
Okay.
But I might be wrong, but I think Exploud, I thought that one came out in Gen 4. But like I said, I could be wrong.
Well, what's weird to me is it's listed as a normal type.
Yeah.
And it does not look normal by any means.
What type would you think it was if you didn't look?
Oof. I would even say maybe a water type, maybe a fairy type, or a ghost type in the last one, the last version.
Okay.
Someone just asked if we think that they'll add trading into the game. They've got to do something in September. It's the end of the third quarter. I don't think that what they've rolled out in the game so far would constitute as three major updates. Everyone's asking for trading. It's either got to be Gen 3 or maybe it is trading. A lot of YouTubers think that Gen 3 isn't going to be out till December. I don't think that Niantic has much of a choice if they're going to stay on schedule here. I mean, we didn't get, we got Gen 2 in what, January, February?
I wasn't playing then because my cell phone gave out.
Her cell phone gave out. She's got an S8 now, so don't feel too bad for her. She's
I used to
caught
have
up.
an S3, so it was a struggle.
She was
And then I gave up
S3
for a
in
little
Pokemon
while.
Go. That's love right there. But yeah, if they don't get Gen 3 out in time, they might have to go with trading, because let's be honest, what are they waiting for at this point? So let's move on to this next one. So we have, oh my gosh, I just don't want to say something inappropriate here. Makuchita?
No, Makuta.
Makuta. Okay. And then Hariyama.
Correct.
Yes, 1 for 2 on those. Now this one looks pretty cool. Definitely looks like a fighting type. It's listed right there in his name. They don't add anything goofy like water to the mix. He kind of looks like Snorlax, got some moves, and is now like a sumo wrestler. I don't know. What can you tell us about this one?
So this one is kind of like a Hitmonchan from Gen 1. Overall, he's pretty strong throughout the game. Packs a punch, quite literally. Yeah.
So is this somebody who you could see using against a Snorlax, against a normal type? Is he going to be a viable Pokemon that you actually use, or is he just kind of fun looking and you're going to have him and he's going to be collectible like Porygon?
So fighting is super effective against normal. So he could easily be used against Snorlaxes or other strong normal types. Maybe even Blissey, but I don't know how the fairy type works currently because that's a newer addition. But yeah, it just depends on the stats. How he actually ranks up is different than.
Well, and I think Blissey is still listed as a normal type, which is strange, right? Is it normal or was it fairy?
I'm not sure. Originally, it was normal.
Okay.
But fairy type came out, I think, in Gen 5, maybe Gen 6. So they
Okay.
added fairy type to a lot of the other Pokemon and changed some normal types to fairy. So those lines are still a bit blurred in my head.
All right. Very interesting. Now, we get a familiar face here. We get a very cute little blue mouse that doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. Even when you evolve him, I mean, this is somebody who, like, I have a very good, well, I'm going to try to pronounce it. So, Azurill, Marill, and Azumarill? Okay, so I have a very good Azumarill. Again, I'm with Team Mystic. He's a wonder. He exceeds. Stats and IVs look great. I'll use him in the last tier of the gyms when they've already... Because you got to fight the gyms 3 times to take them down now, right? They're at full health.
Typically.
You take them down 1/3 every time. So when we're on that last third, I might use an Ivysaur. I might use an Asmodee just to kind of rest my other guys, not have to heal them up, have some fun in using something different. This guy doesn't get incredibly strong. He's obviously made to look very cute and mousy. He almost looks like a little chess piece here on the baby version. What was he like in the game with the new baby edition?
So the baby edition was actually kind of hard to get in the game because you'd have to catch 2 Merrills and then drop them off in the daycare and then get an egg and then hatch the egg. So sometimes it is... I didn't really use a silver that often, but I mean, cuteness factor is off the charts.
That is really interesting. I don't know what kind of daycare they're dropping their Marills at that they're breeding and having babies, but somebody needs to keep a closer eye on them. Somebody was just asking, why is the shiny Gyarados red? And this might be a great point to ask that question because of Jillian being here and her being a Pokexpert. I did like the red Gyarados a lot better than a lot of the shinies because I kind of feel like it's almost lazy to have an orange Pikachu that's slightly darker than the yellow don't love that. I like the extreme changes, almost even a negative, maybe even opposite colors. I don't like it when the shinies barely change. Do you have a story behind the red Gyarados?
It's been a while, but if you look on YouTube and you look up Pokemon Origins, they have a episode where Red Gyarados is there, and I believe it's because Team Rocket was doing experiments and affected a Gyarados in the lake, and that was where the Red Gyarados originally came from. However, like that was like the big first main shiny Pokemon, and then after that, the shinies came slightly more mainstream, like the orange Pikachu that Daniel mentioned.
Well, and then you also have the Charizard, and his shiny version is very different from the original, so I'm a bigger fan of that, to be honest. I do like the Red Gyarados. I think that's a cool story behind Team Rocket, kind of, messing with the genes, and there's some stories with, who was it? The little one that's carrying the bone, Marowak. Marowak and maybe Team Rocket killed his mom, and now, he was kind of orphaned.
It was the sad part.
Yeah, so Team Rocket kind of messes up these Pokemon. But we'll move on. Great question, by the way. Hope you got your answer. We have Nose Pass.
Yep.
And Probopass.
Probopass.
Okay, so this, I get the rock steel look. It looks very robotic. It looks very rock-like. Doesn't look very viable, but the possible CP is there. It almost looks like Stonehenge became a Pokemon.
Yeah.
And, now he's going to fight. Maybe he'd be a good defender?
Maybe. Rock and Steel type Pokemon typically have decent defense. Nose Pass, I was never that big of a fan of, but Nose Pass was okay in the games. Wasn't the best, wasn't that bad. I think Probopass actually originally came out for Gen 4. But like I said, the lines get a little bit blurry in my head. But you had to evolve Nose Pass in a specific location in the video games, so I'm curious if they just do candy or if they'll make it slightly harder than that.
You guys can probably hear the crowd here is getting bigger, and we have it's a gaming party that everybody gets together and does as a group, and there's more and more people here. They're getting excited, so you'll hear a little bit of background noise there, and we might even finish by just showing you what's going on. There's a lot of virtual reality machines, PCs, gaming consoles going on over there. Everybody brought some food, like a potluck, and it's kind of gamer heaven. Moving on from this one, we have Skitty.
Yep.
And Delicati.
Delcatty.
Okay, so is this version's Meowth?
I would say this one is actually closer to Clefairy.
Clefairy? What? How so?
First off, it evolves with a Moonstone.
Okay.
But also, the aesthetic, I think, is closer to Clefairy. Skitty is more of in the games, is more of like a support. Skitty didn't have the greatest attack power, but Skitty was good at like debuffing your enemies and buffing herself and using. She had a move where it would randomly select a move from a different Pokemon in your squad, so sometimes that was amazing, sometimes not so much. Gotcha.
Well, that is pretty cool. So it's definitely a cat. It's like Meowth, but it sounds like it's more useful. It's in a good support way. And I'm hearing more and more about Gen 3 having more of those support-type moves, which makes me say, like, hey, Niantic, think about adding 3 moves per Pokemon instead of, like, one that we just tap our screen and that's the one move, and then you hit your super and it's over. Maybe you have that control in there, too, that debuffer or, self-buff or whatever it might be that you try to keep up on yourself or against what you're attacking. I think that could add a layer to the game.
It could. And one reason why there are so many more Pokemon in this gen that focus on support is that this is the first gen, the video games, that added double battle. So in Gen 1 and 2, it was always one Pokemon versus one Pokemon. This is the first one that added 2 Pokemon against 2 Pokemon, so that's why we have more of those support-type moves that came into effect at this time.
And that could really... I like I like the evolution of the gyms in the system. I think that it can keep improving and they can keep making adjustments. And that might be fun if they have almost like this Royal Rumble of Pokemon that are in there and you're just trying to have yours be the ones that survive and just everyone's going and attacking different ones at the same time. So we have Sableye?
Yep.
All right, so he's by himself. Does he... we won't worry about future evolutions just yet. Is he a viable Pokemon by himself?
Honestly, growing up, I thought he looked kind of creepy, so I avoided him.
Yeah, he looks very ghost type.
So I think overall he was a fine Pokemon. Typically, Pokemon that don't evolve, with the exception of legendaries, are overall slightly weaker. But we'll have to wait and see how he turns out in Pokemon Go.
Okay. Let's see. Then we have Malile. This looks very much like a grass type, but he's listed as a steel fairy. What's his story?
So, Mawile is a Pokemon that in the game you would find in a certain cave. You would either find Mawile or Sableye depending on what version of the game you had.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, there isn't a heck of a lot to be said, but Mawile would also learn a decent number of dark-type moves, so that was handy in taking down other Pokemon.
Gotcha. So he was somebody that you actually did use. It looks like, from what you were saying on the first one, he wasn't used by you as much as the second one to attack. Was it just the version of the game that you had?
I think so.
Okay, so it could be that they kind of serve the same purpose. Pokemon Professor, it's because shiny in the Pokemon universe means it's a different color. And in some of them, it's almost like a Crayola thing where it's a different shade of yellow or a lighter orange and a darker yellow, so it's kind of different and shiny. You can tell the difference between the sparkles, but I really like that Charizard is so different from his shiny version, and so is Gyarados. When we look at this next one, we have Aron. Aaron?
No, I knew you were going to go there. It's basically just Aaron.
Aaron, and then Lairon?
I don't remember actually anyone pronouncing that one out loud. I think it's Larion.
And then Agron.
Correct.
Okay, so she was being very nice and polite in how she was telling me that was wrong, and that's okay. I'm pronouncing these very poorly. So the first one to me looks like that kind of little robot-like dog that you can get at the electronics store. The second one looks a little bit like a Bulbasaur and a Totodile got together, and they had kind of a hybrid. And then the second one almost looks like you got this DJ tech helmet on a Tyranitar. Very different one for me. People have already heard a bit about this one from other YouTubers talking about the top 10s. So I believe this one's a stronger one from Gen 3.
Yeah, so this one typically was decently strong in the game. There's not a heck of a lot to be said, but I mean, basically, it's kind of like the equivalent of Geodude, Graveler, and Golem.
Okay.
But this time you add, instead of it being ground rock, it's steel rock.
All right. And there's not that many steel in the game, so it seems like we're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, steel was originally introduced in Gen 2, so this generation has more steel.
Okay. Now here we go with another fighting psychic type. That's interesting. Meditite? Mm-hmm. And Medicham?
Basically.
Okay. This one doesn't look like it would be very usable as much as just collectible.
I never used them that often.
You weren't a big fan?
No. It's a psychic type, so I was just using Kirlia and Gardevoir instead.
Yeah, it seems like psychic types are good against fighting types, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, it just seems like they need to have more things that they're strong against because they're glass cannons. They can do a lot of damage. Not too many of them can take it. They can just dish it. So it's almost like I got all these Alakazams and I have these Lugias that are like over 3,000, and I almost feel like there's barely a situation to really get in and use them unless I don't care about there being a good matchup.
Maybe.
Do you tend to agree with that?
I don't have, in Pokemon Go, I don't really have a strong sidekick, so I can't really provide input on that. And in the video games, as long as you had a fast enough sidekick, you could typically take them out in one blow. So you didn't have to worry about the HP if you could just knock them before they could hit you.
So the glass cannon has a method to its madness, basically, in the production of them, where they are, in the games, hitting so hard that you don't have to worry about getting hit.
If you did your type mats up properly.
Nice, nice. Which is what you're here for, explaining Pokexpert professional wisdom upon us. So we have Electric.
Electric, yeah.
And then Manectric. That was terrible, right?
Not too bad. Manectric.
Okay, so this kind of looks like a pharaoh dog with a diaper, and it almost looks like that, like toad thing that we saw. No, the toad one that we saw at the beginning of the.
Lotad?
Yeah, it almost looks like him and a green tiger got together at the bottom, and then he has this pharaoh-like look later on. Now, this is a pure electric type, and he's over 2,000 CP, so that's right up there with the Jolteons. Was this something that was usable in the game?
It was usable, but I never used them because I had other electric type Pokemon I liked more that we'll see in just a moment. Overall, I mean, electric types are good. It's just as long as you have, if someone has a ground type, you can't really do anything.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. Okay. So really good against, again, the water, the flying types, double damage against the Gyarados. Is this comparable to anything that's already out there, or would you say it's basically a Jolteon?
I would say it's a cross between a Pikachu and a Jolteon.
Interesting, because unfortunately, and I hate this, the Raichus aren't as strong as I'd like them to be in the game. I think with Pikachu being such a big part of all the raids, I mean, in one of the movies, I think there was a clip on YouTube where you had Pikachu taking out a Tyranitar. And I mean, he's an electric type, you know?
Well, in the anime, Pikachu is always the strongest because it's Ash's main Pokemon.
And we'll circle back to Rhydon. And it is plot convenience, but that's the series, that's the legacy. There's Pikachu celebrations and days and special Santa hat and party hat Pikachu. It'd be nice if Raichu was viable as an option, not just in gyms, but in raids, where you could actually have a 2200 Raichu. He doesn't have to be overpowered. His hit points are weak. He dies quickly, but it'd be nice if he was one of your 6 you could use against a water type. I'm glad you agree as the expert. Okay. Now, I did read that Pikachu was not originally Ash's buddy. Originally, it was Rhyhorn that was the go-to main character that was along with Ash.
It depends on what source you go to. In the anime, Ash and Pikachu are always together. Originally in development, I think it was supposed to originally be a Clefairy, but they changed that because marketing and all that stuff. Clefairy would be more popular with the girls and might turn guys off from watching the show. I haven't really heard the Rhyhorn thing, though, before, so I don't know.
I would encourage people, and I'll try to find the source on that, but I'd be interested to read about the Clefairy. I know it was before the anime came out, because once the anime came out, they were like, hey, look, we need something cute and cuddly and something that people are going to buy into, so we're more interested in Pikachu than we are Rhyhorn. If you, I believe it was original art and drawings, has the Rhyhorn walking around with Ash, and actually, like, his size are bigger. It was very different in comparison to Pikachu. But Google it, check it out. I'll see if I can't find a link to post in the description. So now we have kind of Easter egg looking, Easter versions of Pikachu where you have, and they even start with P on the first one, Plushie?
Plusle.
Plusle? It just, I see that and I see Plushie. And then Minun. Minun. It's a hard I. Minun. Now on these two, obviously one's male, one's female, right? No, so it's not obvious. It's wrong. What's the story on these two?
So Plusle and Minun go together. Plusle is a pun on plus, and Minun's a pun on minus.
Nice. I like what they did there.
Yep. And you notice on their teaks, Plusle has a positive sign and Minun has a negative sign, instead of it just being a solid color like on Pikachu. In the game, like I said before, this was the first game that introduced double battles, and if you used Plusle and Minun at the same time, they would boost each other. However, and if you're doing a double battle, sometimes it's not good to have your two Pokemon be the exact same type, because then they both share the same weaknesses. It can easily get wiped.
Gotcha.
Plusle was a lot of fun to use. It's one of the stronger Pokemon, and my mind's blanking. The Pokemon game for the GameCube that was before Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. I want to say Pokemon Coliseum, but I know that's a different game. But yeah, that was really strong in that one. Overall, in the regular game, it's not the strongest, but I mean, it's a good electric type to have.
Awesome. Let's see. So we have Volbeat.
Yep.
I'm not even sure what I'm looking at. It just looks like, I don't know, it looks like something from Dr. Seuss. Like if they brought Dr. Seuss in to make a Pokemon, this is what he'd do. What's his story?
I mean, it's based off of a Firefly.
Okay, I can see that.
So I never used these ones, in all honesty, because I just didn't like them that much. But I mean, they're bug type, based off of a Firefly.
Not necessarily the type, but him being a standalone, is he comparable to anything strength-wise? Kind of like we were talking about the Rat and the Sentret. It was basically the same thing, just looks different. Is that the case for him with anything?
Similar to Venomoth, maybe, but not quite.
Really? Okay, because I know that one has the evolutions before him, right? So
only Venonat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Venonat, Venomoth. Now this one looks like he's from that little Martian from Bugs Bunny, the green guy with the gun. Illumisy?
I'm not sure on this one, honestly. Illumis?
Now this is another one that very much, it has arms, it has legs, has like a human-looking head. He doesn't look like he's overpowered by any means. What's his story?
I mean, this one kind of goes together with Volbeat. You typically find them about in the same areas. There's not a heck of a lot to be said. If you just had someone with fire or flying on your team, you just take them down in a heartbeat. So.
Okay. Awesome. Now, is he comparable to anything already out there?
I would say the same thing.
Not really. Just kind of a Venomoth.
Yeah.
So let's look at this one. This one almost has that muck, look to him. Gulpin?
Yep.
Swalot?
Yep.
And that looks like, okay, so he kind of looks like Muck. He is a poison type. Are we basically looking at Muck 2.0 here?
Basically. Yep. So if any of you have played Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Gulpin is one of the Pokemon that come out of the Pokeballs, and it's the one that can swallow you up and then spit you back out and maybe make you fly off the screen. That if it looks familiar, that might be why. I never use Gulpin that often, but from what I heard, it can be strong. But like I said, I don't use him.
Yeah, definitely an interesting looking one. Now this one's more my speed. Definitely looks aggressive. Almost has that Sharknado look. Caravanha?
Kavana? No. Kavanha?
Carvanha?
I don't remember.
Let's go with Carvanha. Then Sharpedo.
Yep.
Okay, so Sharpedo, I mean, he basically looks like a shark.
And a torpedo.
With a tattoo on his face. And, I mean, does he look like a torpedo in the sense that all sharks look like a torpedo, or do we just not see the back of him here?
We don't typically see the backsides of Pokemon, but,
Well, if you spin him around, you got like a Girafig. There's another head back there. It's crazy.
That is true. But he's a shark that has aspects of a torpedo, so he's known for being really fast.
Okay. Is this guy going to be someone fun to attack with? Obviously, he's a water type.
He's also dark.
Yep, yep. So is he going to be a viable attacker? Is he comparable to anything?
I was trying to think of what's currently out. A cross between Sea King and Gyarados, but like that's a
Okay.
horrible comparison.
Sure.
I know because they're completely different.
I mean, you're trying because you're looking at some of the dark stuff. I mean, to me, he looks like a straight up shark, and it kind of continues here because you got the whale thing going now with Whelmer
Yep.
and Whalelord. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, this basically looks like the Goodyear blimp. He looks like a whale. First one looks more like a Pokemon. Is this one along the lines of anything that we can compare it to?
Not that I can recall off the top of my head. One thing with Railord is it's going to be probably kind of like Onyx if you can ever find it in the wild, where when you catch it, it's really easy to catch with the Pokeball because it's going to be really hard to miss because Railord is huge. I mean, it's literally a whale. So that compared to like a Pikachu that can sit on your shoulder, what's going to be easier to throw a Pokeball at?
Yeah, I might need a bigger Pokeball. All right, so let's take a look at Namel.
Nummel?
And I don't think we're paused, right? We're going. Yeah,
while
we're
watching.
going. Camerupt.
Yep.
So this is obviously a camel, and he has like a license plate on the side of him and like stone humps.
Once again, the name's a play on words. It's a camel and eruption.
All right,
So volcano eruption.
ground type implied. All right. They threw the fire type in there as well.
Volcano.
Yeah. Now, what's the story with this guy outside of the name? He doesn't look like anything else I've seen.
He's basically fire ground type. It's typically in the game you have to actually obtain it. You have to evolve it. But I think if you spoke to a certain someone in the game, they would trade you a Pokemon for it. I don't think Camerupt is that special in all honesty, but it's an interesting looking Pokemon. I'll give it that.
They put some time on it, had the name in there, got creative. All right, so let's see with Torkoal.
Yep.
What's going on here?
Fire type.
And he's a big turtle, right?
I would say more tortoise than turtle, but they're similar anyways.
And didn't we have this in World of Warcraft? There was that fire big tortoise thing that walked around, and I forget its name. I'll have to look it up, but like it was a rare catch. It had the silver bars around it, so it was something that you keep flying over that area to see if it would spawn, and you could try to catch it as a hunter to be your pet. It kind of looks like this. CP looks like it could be reasonable to use. It's a fire type straight up, so that's nice. You don't have to worry about it being two different types and having double weaknesses. Did you have any experiences with this one?
I didn't have that much in the game with this one. One of the gym leaders in the game had a Torkoal, and I had a water type, so it was fairly easy to take down. But, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say, but it's interesting.
Okay. We have, and let me see what we got left here. We got a lot, or we got a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
All right. So where we left off, we have Spoink.
Yep.
And Grumpig.
Yes.
So one looks like a toy you put at the end of your pencil, and the other one looks like maybe what's on clearance at Toys R Us. What's going on with this one?
So, Spoink and Grumpig are both psychic Pokemon. In the lore of the Pokemon world, if Spoink is on a spring, so Spoink is always bouncing. And in the lore, if Spoink stops bouncing, his heart will stop and Spoink will die.
Kind of like Charmander with the tail.
So
If his fire goes out in his tail, he'll die.
Yep.
Okay.
Pokemon can be weird at times.
They can be dark. They have dark types and ghost types.
And this one's psychic.
And it's psychic, so it's not going to be normal. Now, speaking of psychic, this one says normal, but it looks psychotic. Spinda?
Yep.
What's going on here with this bunny? Because I think if I bought this for somebody for their kid, I wouldn't be invited back to the house.
So Spinda, they don't. It's basically is always dizzy and is always confused.
I know the feeling.
It always has something going on where always dizzy, kind of always stumbling. Fun fact, the pattern on it, none of them are supposed to be the same, but we know with video games and with graphics and stuff, they're going to be similar.
Eventually you'll come across it. So is that almost like Rorschach with the Watchmen where, his face keeps changing and it's like this psychotic thing?
It stays, so like this Spinda has a certain look and no other Spinda will look the same. So it doesn't change, but it's unique, kind of like snowflakes.
I'm getting the impression that he's not supposed to be as scary as I might be making him out to be. Like he might just be a dizzy bunny.
He's basically a confused rabbit from Alice in Wonderland.
Well, see, you add the Alice in Wonderland, all of a sudden I picture him with a knife coming after me in the dark. Until you said that, I thought he's fine. So let's see what we have. We have Trapinch, Vibrava, and Flygon.
Yes.
1 out of 3 on that one. Now this one's pretty interesting. Looks like a bug Pokemon. It's listed as a dragon. Anything like this already in the game?
We don't have that many dragon types right now, so the only one we can really compare it to is Dragonite, and with the ground we can maybe also compare it to Golem.
Gotcha. Okay, so Dragonite, maybe Golem. I could see that mix. Does he have any kind of story in the game? Is he usable? Is he interesting?
I never used him that often. They are very usable in the game. Dragon type Pokemon are fairly powerful, especially before they added the Fairy type, because Dragon was super effective against Dragon, and there was one other type that was super effective, but I think that was it for a while.
Yeah.
So Dragon type Pokemon were good until somewhat recently got nerfed by the Fairy type.
Well, and what's interesting about this one, if you think about it, it's ground and dragon, so it could have dragon moves and ground moves, and it could be strong against other dragons, but again, those dragons, if they have dragon attacks, are going to be strong against it. But, it just adds a nice variable in that dragon genre.
Yeah. And I find it ironic that the last evolution is Flygon, and it's not part flying.
Yeah, I was like, Dragonite flies. This is weird. Dragons are just kind of, you assume they're going to be flying type. I would like to see one that's just straight up dragon. Like, it's a dragon. It doesn't fly, it stays on the ground, it's a dragon, single type. So the next one we have here is Cacnea?
Cacnea.
So there's a cactus, okay. Cacturn?
Yep.
Okay, so, obviously a grass type. Looks like a scarecrow cactus in the second one. What's going on here?
It's basically a cactus. There was a desert area in the game, and that's where you would find this type along with Trapinch. Grass type, fire or flying. Cacnea might have had ability in the game where if you touched it, you took damage. I think Sarpedo also had a similar ability because he had rough skin. There isn't exactly a Pokemon to compare it to, but it's an interesting looking one.
Yeah, it's grass dark, it almost looks like a little goblin, not quite gremlin thing, it's very interesting. So then we have Swablu,
Altaria.
Okay, so this one looks like it's basically a cloud bird thing.
Yeah.
What's the story on this one?
So, Swablu is a bit of a neat freak. It likes cleaning stuff, but also it's a Pokemon that comforts other Pokemon.
It converts other Pokemon?
Comforts.
Oh, comforts. Okay.
So,
So if mine gets like thrown out of a gym, I might not have to use a revive and potions. He could just get comforted and he's feeling better.
I doubt that they'll actually do that, but in the lore, Swablu is kind of like a Pokemon that somewhat looks out for other Pokemon.
Okay, almost like a medic type?
Not necessarily a medic type, but kind of like the motherly type, I would say.
Gotcha.
And same thing with Altaria. And Altaria is strong because it becomes part dragon.
Again, we have dragon and flying. So here we have Zangoose.
Correct.
Okay, now this guy looks pretty terrifying too. He's got like the Wolverine claws. He's got like the battle scars on him. He looks like he's ready to rumble. Now he's a normal type. Mm-hmm. He looks like they put him in there to use in the game. He wasn't just there for decoration.
Zangoose, you find him later in the game, so honestly I never used him that much because I already had a strong team going back then. But Zangoose can be pretty strong if you aren't going against someone who's super effective against you. And Zangoose has a blood feud almost with the next Pokemon on our list, so that's interesting.
Well, let's talk about that feud a little bit. We have Sviper.
Yep.
All right, so they have a feud. Oh, Mongoose, Viper. I think I see what they're doing here. Mm-hmm. So obviously a poison type. It's a snake. Not quite an Ekans because there's not a evolve going on here.
But similar.
Okay. And anything in addition for this one?
Not a heck of a lot. Viper, if you watch the show, I believe Jesse from Team Rocket had one. But Zangoose and Viper are always fighting each other in the lore, trying to be the Pokemon on top. So.
Okay. Yeah, he looks like a mean Ekans. He looks like Ekans just got on steroids, got in with a bad crowd, maybe got some tattoos and piercings, got his tail trimmed up sharp or something. He looks like he's from the mean side of the streets. Now you have the Moon Lunatone. Yeah, rock psychic type. I guess the whole lunar thing, mm-hmm. Waves and rocks. Okay.
Yeah. Lunatone is an interesting Pokemon. It's partnered kind of with the next Pokemon, that's Solrock.
Okay.
This is, once again, it was a game-exclusive Pokemon, so you could only get it if you had a certain game, and then you'd have to trade with someone else to get the other one.
Gotcha. Optimal word here, trade, Niantic, if you're listening. Everyone's clamoring for it. We'd love to see it. So we have Barboach. Mm-hmm. And Whiscash?
Whiscash.
Okay, so the first one looks like it's almost like a sea roach snail. And the second one looks kind of like a small, happy whale catfish. What's going on with this one?
Not a heck of a lot. It's water ground, so kind of the same concept as Marshtomp and Swampert. So
okay.
They're solid against electric Pokemon, but very weak to grass Pokemon.
Huh, and it almost looks like the Lantern or the Chinchou. It's like that kind of thing, but only not the electric version. It's the water ground version.
Yeah,
okay, cool. So now we have Corphish.
Yep.
And Crawdont.
Basically.
All right, so here we have a Poke Crawdad. He does have a starfish on his head when he evolves. Is this one going to be a usable one, or is this Parasect all over again? What is this?
I would compare it to Krabby and Kingler.
Okay, so
depends on the situation.
Strong Pokemon with terrible moves. Maybe eventually we'll get some better ones. Gen 3 is not out. This is definitely not how we'd announce it. We'd definitely go live and catch some stuff and show it that way. This is breaking down basically what we're getting in Gen 3. You're seeing all over YouTube a lot of people talking about what is coming as far as like the top 10, but there's 135 Pokemon that we don't know about that's coming in this next generation. So just introducing those a bit to everybody. I, for one, don't know much about Gen 3, but I got the Pokexpert Jillian here with me. I call her Jilly Bean. She lets me. Oh, no, you're fine. You can be as new as you want. So, Baltoy
Yep.
and Claydol?
Yep.
Okay, so I see the psychic thing here. What's his story?
I don't know much of a story to it. I think James from Team Rocket had Baltoy at one point. It's interesting just because it's kind of designed like a top. Mm-hmm. So just spin, spin, spin.
Okay, cool. Hey, thanks for the subscribe. Anyone who's watching, if you do that or lend a like, it's greatly appreciated, so thank you. We have Little Leap
The Leap.
and Cradilly. So Little Leap looks like something that's, at the zoo in a saltwater aquarium and it's alive. And then the second one looks like it's from Little Mermaid after she lost the bet.
So, the Leap and Cradilly are both, in the game, you had to pick what fossil you're going to grab before this ancient place basically falls down.
Okay.
But you can only grab one. So you had to grab either the plant fossil or the animal fossil.
Okay.
So the Leap is the plant fossil. So it's kind of based on dinosaur times. The Leap looks like a flower, and Cradilly looks like, I don't know, something from that era.
It looks like Little Mermaid lost the bet to Ursula, and now you're going to fight with her in Pokemon. So now we have something that I can only assume is an insect from Avatar that turns into a predator from Avatar. Anorith and Armaldo.
That one I don't know.
I'm going with Armaldo. I may be butchering it. So he looks pretty tough. I think he's shown up on some lists already as one of the tougher ones. What's his deal?
He was the other choice for the fossils. So you could only get one or the other. I didn't really use this one that often, but it can be pretty strong. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Awesome. Well, he looks pretty cool. Now we have what looks like it's from a Disney movie, and then it gets into a pretty awesome-looking water snake, Feebas.
Yep.
And Milotic?
Melodic.
So it's not the big Serbian basketball player. It's Melodic. All right, so this one looks like it might actually be a usable one. Looks almost like a legendary. What's going on with this one?
Welcome to Magikarp and Gyarados 2.0.
Ah.
Feebas is literally Magikarp. Like, it's practically worthless. When you evolve it into Milotic, it becomes useful, but it was pretty hard to evolve in the game. So, it looks, depending on what game you played, like you had to max out the beauty of it and then give it an item and it would evolve. In Pokemon GO, will probably be would need a decent amount of candy and an item to make it evolve.
So you don't think this 50 candy is going to stick? You think it's going to probably be more closer to Gyarados' 400?
Probably not 400, but I think it'll be more than 50.
Okay. Let me see here.
I do have some change. Do you have any cash in your pocket?
All right. And we have Cast Form.
Yep.
All right, so what's his deal?
So cast form you stumble upon when you go to the Weather Research Institute. So cast form actually changes based on the weather you're having. So to provide context, in regular weather, cast form is a normal type Pokemon. But if it's raining, it's water, and if it's a sunny day, it's fire.
Well, come on over here. Lisa just got here. Did you want to join us?
No, I will listen.
You want to listen? Why don't you sit on this side of the table so you can see what we're looking at? All right.
Did you catch them all yet?
So
No.
Lisa's here. This is my wife. If you've seen any other videos, she's in them, and you hear her voice when we're evolving the Umbreon buddy for your second Umbreon, your Espeon to get your second one, walking him after 10K and evolving him while he's still your buddy. You do one at day, one during the night, and you will get a second one, or really as many as you want. This little guy is one that Jillian was just talking about. Do you want to try to pronounce it?
Cast form.
Correct.
She got it right. She got it right. Let's see. Are you new to Gen 3? I'm just asking. I'm not trying to be mean. Absolutely, I am. And that's not a mean question. I appreciate you saying that, though. That's why I have Pokexpert Jillian here. I'm very new to Gen 3. Now, in the game, I'm a level 36. I do every raid. I've got 9 Tyrannitars. I'm far along. I enjoy it. But I have no idea what's coming in Gen 3, and I know a lot of people want to know what's going on with Gen 3. So that's why we're making this video. And Jillian's in our group, but she knows so much more about them. Again, she's been doing Pokemon before she could talk or walk, and she knows everything there is to know. So, Niantic, if you need professional advice beyond, having that direct connect with, the creators, Jillian's here to lend a hand. So this next one, let's try to pronounce this chameleon lizard thing. Keleon?
No.
Keleon?
Kecleon.
Lisa got it.
Kecleon?
Kecleon.
Well, she knows medical terms, so she's going to do a little bit better. So what's his story?
So Kecleon is basically the chameleon Pokemon. So in the video game, he would block your path, but you couldn't see him, so you can't battle him until you got an item that made him actually visible. So, and then you would fight him, and then you'd have the opportunity to catch him. And I think in the original game, you only had like 2 opportunities to catch him, but in the newer ones, you can catch him more than once.
Now, these last 2, if we don't see some type of 2-on-2 Pokemon option in the gyms or in player-to-player battle, maybe that's coming. Are they viable to be used at all, or are these just collectibles in Pokemon Go?
I never used Kecleon. I think Kecleon is more collectible, but I never used him much. Cast form, very situational. Cast form changes type based on the weather in the video game. So if you're in rain, it's a water type. If it's sunny, it's a fire type. If it's a regular day, it's normal type. If you're in a sandstorm, it's ground or rock.
It always gets me when they're normal type and they totally don't look normal at all. This looks like a ghost type. This looks like Casper the Friendly Ghost put on a little Batman mask and went out to fight crime. We have a Emerald fan in the group. We have Shumpet.
Suppet?
Oh man, I just butchered that. You want to try the next one? I think I already lost.
Banette?
Yeah.
All right, so this definitely looks like a ghost type. This looks like what haunts children's dreams. Maybe what little kids wake up to and cry, and their parents have to come in and console them. What's this?
Bad Lavatar.
He looks like what?
Bad Lavatar.
Bad Lavatar. Like if Lavatar got possessed, he might look like this. What's the story on this ghost Pokemon?
So basically, they're ghost Pokemon that are very vengeful. In lore, Banette is actually a plus that was forgotten by a child. And now since they were forgotten, they have resentment, and now they're trying to go find that child that abandoned them. Kind of like Toy Story 3, but on steroids.
Wow.
Oh, that's
I don't want to know what they would do if they found the child that abandoned them. I think maybe we shouldn't go into that. So we continue with the ghost types. I don't think we've had enough purebred ghost types. Gengar, being ghost and dark, has made it to where he's almost unusable as a plus damage, because everything that he can hurt him too. It seems like there's very few cases that he can actually do extra damage to something that can't also do extra damage to him, and he has low hit points, so he goes down fairly fast. I'm liking seeing the purebred ghosts here, although I'm slightly terrified. So this one looks like a skeleton rock Duskull,
Correct.
Dusclops,
Correct.
and
Nice.
Dusknor.
Correct.
Well, what's his story?
Duskull is a Pokemon that would lead away bad children. Dusclops basically just absorbs stuff, and Dusknor, I want to say that one came out in Gen 4 as well instead of Gen 3, but
Really? Okay.
Gen 4 added a lot of evolutions to Pokemon that already existed. So some of them might just be my memory isn't at what it used to be for Pokemon. But Dusknor was actually in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time or Darkness, depending on what version you got. And Dusknor is like the bad cop. Like, he was from the future, and he was trying to stop a time traveler that was trying to save the world, literally.
Wow.
So,
All right. Very
watch
Terminator.
out.
And this Dunsclops, he looks like something off Monsters Inc.
A bit.
He looks like he was maybe in one of the rooms during the college movie. Tropius.
Tropus?
What's going on with him?
Not a heck of a lot. He's a grass flying type. He's basically a walking palm tree.
Okay, walking palm tree. Almost like a executioner.
Executor.
Yes, that guy. I don't like fighting with him. I know that he's strong. I know that he does well in raids and battles, but I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of his. So let me see. Absol? Mm-hmm. He's pretty cool looking. Now, is this guy a legendary, or what's his story?
Absol is not a legendary. He is a dark type. He can be fairly strong. He's kind of a loner Pokemon, and he lives on the mountains.
Okay, he's pretty cool looking, and he's a pure dark type, and there's not too many of those. Right now we got Umbreon, and I think that we introduced one earlier on.
Probably.
Okay. Now, Wobbuffet gets a prequel here. He is interesting as almost like this tank, because he has so much hit points. But here we have him as Why Not?
Yep.
Yes!
Nice.
Got Why Not. Baby version, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Basically like Pichu.
Alright. Not a whole lot to go over in
I
there.
wonder if you're gonna have to hatch him.
I'm
Probably.
guessing, like all the babies, you're going to have to hatch them. 2K eggs, I'm guessing. Then we have Snorunt.
That looks like Snoring.
Snorunt.
All right, so we got that one right. What's going on with him?
So this is an ice-type Pokemon. It's interesting because it's an ice-type Pokemon, but it's like always cold, and but it survives by eating snow and ice. Like in the Pokemon, in more recent Pokemon or the Pokemon move, it's like literally shivering the entire time, even though it's an ice type.
So it's an ice type, but it's cold.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hurting itself.
And Snowrunt will later be able to evolve, so I would stock some candy.
Gotcha. Awesome. Let's see. Is this a good stopping place to take a break, or should we wrap it up for a little bit?
Yeah.
Get back to it, because I think we have a lot left to go through here. And we're hitting right at the top of the hour. Yeah, we've got quite a few to go over. I don't know how long that
We
would
are
take us.
here, out of here.
So yeah, we got a little bit of time left. That might be a good time to leave off. So Jillian, thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody who got to hang out, and we will get back with you guys soon. Take care.